I closely follow game announcements, trailers, and early details, and 2026 is already shaping up to be an incredibly strong year. These aren't just big names for the sake of hype, but genuinely ambitious projects that look memorable and worth your time. In this video, I've put together a list of the top upcoming games of 2026 that you really shouldn't miss if you care about quality experiences. Ebola Village is a gritty first-person survival horror that originally launched on PC on May 13, 2025, and is now officially confirmed for PlayStation 5 with a release date set for January 23, 2026. Inspired by classic 90s-era survival horror, the game places you in the role of Maria, who is drawn back to a bleak rural village to investigate mysterious biological events affecting her family, only to uncover something far more disturbing. The experience focuses heavily on atmosphere, constant tension, and a feeling of vulnerability, with puzzle solving, inventory management, and combat playing central roles. You face eerie environments where every corner feels unsafe, use a range of weapons to survive, and choose from multiple difficulty levels that shape how unforgiving the journey becomes. On PlayStation 5, the game supports DualSense vibration, further reinforcing its goal of delivering a deeply immersive and unsettling horror experience. Marvel's Blade is an upcoming third-person single-player action-adventure game starring Eric Brooks, also known as Blade, the legendary Daywalker vampire hunter, and as of early 2026, it remains one of Marvel's most anticipated projects. Developed by Arcane Lion and published by Bethesda Softworks, the game marks a departure from Arcane's traditional first-person style, instead delivering a cinematic, narrative-driven combat experience. Set in a quarantined, vampire-infested Paris, the story focuses on stalking the night and hunting undead threats in a dark, supernatural version of the city. The project entered full production toward the end of 2024, and the developers have repeatedly emphasized a focus on quality over speed, aiming to create a darker, more mature Marvel game with a strong narrative core and carefully crafted atmosphere. Decrepit is an upcoming first-person dark fantasy Souls-like action game currently targeting a 2026 release, and it drops you into a nightmarish medieval castle overrun by undead enemies and grotesque horrors. The game is built around stamina-based combat that rewards patience, precise timing, smart positioning, and learning enemy patterns, blending the tension of Dark Souls-style design with the claustrophobic intensity of a first-person dungeon crawl. Each death sends you back into the depths of the castle, but with greater understanding rather than simple punishment, as enemies and encounters shift, while shortcuts remain unlocked. Every run begins in a different castle cell, reinforcing the idea of mastery over repetition. Your loadout consists of a weapon, a staff, and a piece of armor, and together these elements define distinct builds such as warrior, mage, rogue, or shaman, shaping how you approach combat and survival. Mudang Two Hearts is a narrative-driven third-person action stealth thriller currently slated for a 2026 release, although recent silence from the developers has raised some uncertainty around its future. The game is set in a near-future Korean peninsula where a fragile peace effort collapses after a terrorist attack, plunging the region into chaos. The story follows two interconnected protagonists, Ji Jung-tae, an elite North Korean special forces operative, and Gavi, a K-pop idol unexpectedly pulled into the conflict. Their intertwined perspectives drive a politically charged narrative filled with conspiracies, emotional moments, and high-stakes infiltrations. Gameplay blends stealth, close-quarters combat, and tactical decision-making, allowing players to approach situations quietly, aggressively, or somewhere in between, supported by gadgets, weapons, open-ended level design, and reactive enemy AI that emphasizes player choice. Bradley the Badger is an upcoming action-adventure platformer from Day 4 Night, a new studio founded by industry veterans who previously worked on projects like Red Dead Redemption and Mario plus Rabbids. You play as Bradley, a classic mascot-style badger who becomes lost in a collection of strange, unfinished worlds, and the game's standout feature is its meta twist. Bradley gains access to developer-style powers that allow him to reshape environments, alter terrain, and solve puzzles in creative and sometimes mind-bending ways. The experience blends exploration, platforming, and puzzle solving with a satirical narrative that acts as a love letter to video games and game development itself. Throughout the journey, the game playfully references major titles such as Bloodborne, Cyberpunk, and The Last of Us, while maintaining a colorful tone that balances humor, creativity, and thoughtful commentary on the process of creation.
I really transformed myself. You know, the classics. It's what I do. Quick decision. Picked up new wheels. Figured out how to think big.
Total War Warhammer 40,000 is the next major entry in the Total War franchise, officially announced at the Game Awards 2025, and for the first time it brings Creative Assembly's large-scale strategy formula into the grimdark science fiction universe of Warhammer 40,000. Instead of medieval or fantasy battlefields, this entry is framed as a galactic strategy epic where massive armies clash across a galaxy-spanning campaign, potentially involving multiple planets. Players command iconic factions such as the Space Marines, Orcs, Eldari, and Astra Militarum, each defined by their own units, identities, and tactical strengths. The structure blends a turn-based campaign layer with classic real-time Total War battles, supported by faction customization, army building, and strategic decision-making on a galaxy-scale map.
Worlds, fight on as the galaxy burns. Lead your armies. Conquer.
Deepest Fear is an upcoming science fiction horror first-person shooter from indie developer Variable State, currently in active development with no fixed release date and an expected launch sometime in 2026 or later. The game takes place deep beneath the ocean in a flooded research facility called Neptune, blending horror, immersive sim design, and Metroidvania-style progression into a tense, atmospheric experience. You play as Dr. Danny Carroll, exploring the submerged complex after a long-buried secret has resurfaced and placed the future of Earth at risk. The retro-futuristic setting draws inspiration from classic horror films and games, and one of its defining mechanics is real-time fluid simulation that allows monsters to emerge from any source of water, turning flooded corridors, leaking pipes, and even small puddles into constant threats.
What the hell have you people been doing down here?
Grand Theft Auto 6, commonly known as GTA 6, is the next major open-world action-adventure game from Rockstar Games and is currently targeted for release on November 19, 2026. It serves as the long-awaited follow-up to Grand Theft Auto 5 and is set in a modernized version of Vice City within the fictional state of Leonida. The story centers on two protagonists, Lucia Caminos and Jason Duval, whose relationship and criminal journey draw inspiration from Bonnie and Clyde as they navigate a massive open world filled with crime, satire, and chaos. The game was officially announced in December 2023 after years of speculation, and after several delays, Rockstar has committed to a late 2026 release window with a strong emphasis on polish and overall quality. Despite limited recent gameplay reveals, industry insiders continue to describe the project as potentially redefining open-world standards and exerting major influence across the entire industry.
Hands above your head, now!
You stay.
They got your name, address, they got everything.
Us cops, we got
Menace is an upcoming turn-based tactical role-playing game from Overhype Studios, the creators of Battle Brothers, and it shifts the studio's focus into a science fiction setting defined by conflict and instability. In this game, you lead a strike force made up of soldiers, mercenaries, and criminals as they confront an alien threat within a distant, lawless star system dominated by rival factions, corporations, and pirate warlords. Rather than operating from a static base, you manage your campaign from a mobile headquarters cruiser called the TCRN Impetus, responding to distress calls, training units, equipping squads, and making strategic decisions that shape the direction of the story. Tactical combat is turn-based and features infantry, tanks, walkers, and other units, with deep customization allowing gear and equipment choices to define how each squad performs. Exekiller is a retro-futuristic first-person action-adventure shooter set in a post-apocalyptic world with a distinctive cyber-western aesthetic, blending dusty wastelands with advanced technology and corporate control. You play as Denzel Phoenix, a licensed bounty hunter working for a powerful corporation known as Helion, navigating a harsh desert landscape filled with dangerous weather, outlaws, and morally complex decisions. The world exists in a dystopian alternate timeline shaped by a catastrophic collapse of society, where survival is fragmented and heavily regulated through technology. Denzel's work involves hunting targets, extracting souls, which are digital implants tied to control and identity, and uncovering deeper truths about both his own existence and the forces shaping this broken world.
Missions and level design are fully non-linear.
Execulars hunt down fugitives and reclaim souls from those who
Project
try to
S is an upcoming single-player action RPG developed by Lionheart Studio, a South Korean team that is deliberately aiming for the AAA next-generation space, with the project still in active development and positioned as one of the studio's flagship titles, designed with consoles in mind from the very beginning. At its core, Project S is built as a cinematic action RPG that blends fast yet weighty combat with a strong narrative focus. And based on the limited official materials released so far, the game is clearly pursuing a grounded and dramatic fantasy tone rather than bright anime visuals or exaggerated stylization, emphasizing realistic character proportions, moody lighting, and environments that feel lived in instead of ornamental. Combat appears to be real-time and skill-driven, leaning toward modern action RPG design rather than turn-based systems, with heavy and deliberate animations that suggest a focus on timing, positioning, and impactful strikes instead of button mashing. And while the game has not been officially labeled as a Souls-like, its visual language points toward methodical melee combat with possible RPG progression layered on top.
거대한 방벽은 무너졌고 생존자들은 뿔뿔이 흩어졌어. 무너진 도시에서 키를 찾고 탈출해. 매일 밤을 지새울 수밖에 없었지.
All Will Fall is an upcoming post-apocalyptic, physics-driven city builder and survival strategy game set on a flooded Earth where rebuilding civilization becomes both a logistical and engineering challenge. You begin as the leader of a small group of survivors stranded at sea, tasked with constructing a vertical, ocean-born city that can sustain humanity's future. Unlike traditional city builders, every structure in the game obeys real-world physics, meaning poorly planned or improperly supported buildings can collapse at any moment. Construction is less about free placement and more about careful design, forcing you to think like an architect as you expand upward. Alongside building, the experience revolves around managing scarce resources, exploring the surrounding waters for supplies, and making critical decisions about housing, food, water, and infrastructure to keep your growing settlement alive.
To build more and more, despite all the dangers. And when the storm, we prevailed. We worked hard and laughed, celebrating me. But we will rebuild. We survived worse. Each day, we explored the land and the ocean.
Swords of Legends is an upcoming single-player action role-playing game from Oregon, Shanghai, and represents a new global chapter in the long-running Gujian franchise, which is deeply rooted in Chinese mythology, folklore, and literary tradition. Officially unveiled at Gamescom 2025's opening night live, the game drew attention for its cinematic presentation and myth-inspired combat. You play as Si Pan, an underworld enforcer who exists between the realms of the living and the dead, confronting supernatural threats while guiding restless souls. Combat blends traditional melee fighting with mystical techniques, allowing you to summon captured souls and wield divine artifacts against enemies inspired by ancient legends.
The living cast their dead to flame and sacrifice soulless husk. You can judge my fate.
Crisis X is an action-adventure MMO survival game set in a post-apocalyptic open world where survival itself is the central objective. The environment is hostile and unpredictable, filled with infected creatures, wild animals, and other players who may become allies or enemies depending on your choices. Players are free to fight or cooperate, forming alliances or rivalries as they gather resources, upgrade equipment, and attempt to dominate territory. The world spans a massive 1,200 square kilometer map with up to 5,000 players on a single server and features 12 distinct biome types, ranging from frozen mountains to rivers and desert wastelands, each with unique dangers. Survival systems require careful management of hunger, thirst, disease, physical condition, and even body weight, all of which affect performance.
But people stay the same. How would you choose? We raid.
Industria 2 is an upcoming narrative-driven first-person adventure FPS that blends exploration, survival, horror, and storytelling into a focused but deeply atmospheric experience, serving as a direct sequel to the original Industria. The story continues with Nora, a woman trapped in a parallel dimension ruled by a hostile artificial intelligence known as ATLAS, as she searches for a way back home. The journey takes place across strange boreal landscapes and industrial ruins, where scavenging for resources and surviving hostile encounters are constant concerns. Gameplay emphasizes immersion through linear but emotionally rich storytelling, immersive sim-style mechanics that rely on physics-based interactions, and tense combat against both robotic enemies and environmental threats.
To create additional ammo.
Decadent is a story-driven first-person shooter that combines atmospheric exploration with Lovecraftian horror and a strong narrative focus. You play as John Lorne, a Great War veteran who has turned to occult practices and now embarks on a desperate journey into the Arctic to find his missing son by following the trail of a mysterious expedition. The experience blends methodical exploration across frozen tundras, desolate wilderness, sunless forests, and alien caverns with intense combat using a range of weapons that include 1920s firearms, occult-infused pistols, and unsettling bioweapons scavenged and customized along the way. A dynamic sanity system plays a central role, affecting hallucinations, panic, and perception, while powerful artifacts can alter Lorne's statistics and overall playstyle.
I won't let you!
Why would you help me?
Oh, just a humble merchant.
Seasoning up. Keep it together, Lorne. Find a way out. Finally!
These are dangerous parts, after all.
Huh. Let me see.
Virtua Fighter marks the long-awaited return of one of the most iconic 3D fighting game franchises in history, as Sega and Ryuga Gotoku Studio have officially revived the series with a brand new mainline entry commonly referred to as the new Virtua Fighter project, effectively Virtua Fighter 6. Designed as a fully modern fighting game, this installment aims to preserve the deep, technical martial arts combat that defines the franchise while expanding its appeal through updated visuals, evolved mechanics, and the potential introduction of a story mode, something the series has never featured before. Early gameplay footage has been shown at fighting game events, teasing refined one-on-one combat alongside new battle systems intended to add depth without sacrificing the core competitive feel. Gothic Remake is a full ground-up reimagining of the classic 2001 action role-playing game Gothic, developed by Alchemia Interactive and published by THQ Nordic. The remake stays faithful to the original's open-world RPG identity, placing you in the brutal and lawless Valley of Mines, where survival depends on your choices, alliances, and willingness to adapt. Players are free to explore the world non-linearly, join one of several factions, and shape their own path through a harsh environment filled with dangerous creatures, morally complex characters, and deep lore. While preserving the spirit of the original, the remake expands and reworks the world with modern visuals, updated environments, and refined systems.
It's mysteries all alone. I need allies. Allies who look up onto something. And the orcs. You might...